tau rangi ai, tau aroha, me tau kaha mō teni rā, aki, ameni. So welcome those that have come here. I can pretty well guess what the concern is, and yes, and thank you for the emails. We've had a lot of emails. So what I'm going to open with a bit of comments, and I think that's to show respect and also to show that we've been listening as well. So I'll just do some open comments first, and then we'll go on to the general meeting, I think. And that is, some of the number of us would have received a number of emails, and a lot of the concerns, and I'll just go through them, and this is just in summary, were to looking at the statement of intent to and look at TCC. Identified. Was part of the
just pause the meeting for 5 minutes, Chair, until we can get back up and running. My suggestion.
Can you hear now, Kel? Sorry, Councillor Shepherd? No. Oh, yes?
So
yes.
You can hear?
Yep, we can hear now. It's just come back.
Lisa, yes. So
Okay.
you missed my feedback that I was giving to the gallery, which is thanking them for being here and giving a bit of run through on some of the questions that have been answered. And look, I tell you, I welcome these questions, and please continue to do that. So I will have some, when we get to that item, which is item 5.1, I'll have some comments on that. Kelly, I did raise in the meeting, you didn't hear me say that, is that we have asked for a working party to look at the overall CCO and CCTO, the final holding structure, and get a better understanding of it. Do you want to comment on that at all? No, she can't hear me.
I would suggest, Chairman, the pause on the.
Sorry, I thought you were asking Sean to comment on it. Will we be looking to include that in a resolution so it is able to be
So
followed up on?
Sorry about that.
Kelly, can you hear us?
Yeah, yes, I can.
So we all back online? I've still got to wait, and Councillor Court has gone 5 minutes delay.
We're back.
Yeah, that's right. We need more time. So running another workshop.
And that's what happened yesterday. It's one of the facts about
also understand that Councillor Stratford and the Mayor and others that are online to hear us. Is that correct? Right. So then we're going to start the meeting proper. So beginning with apologies and conflicts of interest. So are there any particular conflicts of interest anybody actually has that they want to raise? Was not at the time the item was raised. And do I have apologies? I have apology from Councillor Stratford. I believe.
She's online.
She's online, but she's will have to leave early.
Oh, right. Okay.
And from Matthew Rage, he did text me a message. Any other apologies? No, what else is here? All right.
Happy to move those, Mr. Chair.
Yep. And thank you. And second for that, please. Thank you, Adele. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Item 4.1, confirmation of previous minutes. So I'll move a second for that. Thanks, Bruce. Second. Thank you. Any errors? Do you see any errors in there? Corrections? No. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Now, item 5.1. I heard my opening remarks. I'm not going to sort of repeat those again, but I do wish, and I think Kelly didn't hear me, and John, there has been a request made by elected members for a workshop, and I've been told here that we'll be doing the workshop, and in that workshop we'll be looking at great understanding of details of our CCTO and CTOs, and appreciation of that. And certainly we'll be taking what's been said through and bringing it on board in that workshop, so we can look at provide a better reply. So don't think this is the only opportunity. That's what I want to say. It is the only opportunity, though, unfortunately, for this year. And what I'm saying that is the current statement of intent has been around the PRAPs, and we have replied back to them, and the deadline for us to reply is the 31st of May, and that's what I said before. Unfortunately, that's it, and our CCTO is going to operate on the new statement come July. So I think I'll ask perhaps
Yes.
comment on that, just to verify that I've got it correctly understood. So, thank you.
No, you're correct in reading the legislation, Chair. The deadline for us to feed back to Fardell Holdings was the 30th of April. And the deadline now is for them to deliver their final statement of intent to us before the start of the financial year to which it applies, which is this month.
Yeah.
The option under Schedule 8 for the statement of intent to be extended for a month only applies to the particular point it's referencing. So it would only be for them to deliver to us a month late. It doesn't extend the deadline for us to go back to them by a month, just for clarity for the public.
Yeah. Thank you. So thanks for that, Jenna. So did we move the second for this?
No, not yet.
So I'm going to move the item.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Now we can just debate it. So I'll go around the table. So members, committee, any comments?
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair. Just how are you running this item? Is it all questions and comments wrapped into our 5 minutes within standing orders? If we've got questions, are we posing those questions first and then making comments? How? I'd just like that clarified, please. I
would like to actually be fairly tight on reason. The reason is Bruce has to leave, and we've got time frame to work through. I'll allow Kelly, though, because she has to go, I believe. Did you want to comment on some of the the workshop that we're talking about or anything, Kelly? So if we start with you first, and then
Certainly. Can you hear me?
yes.
Excellent. So not happy at all that we missed the deadline, and I really do not feel that it is the CFO's responsibility to make sure that we get an opportunity to comment on the statement of intent. Since 2019, this has been a big issue for the current council, and we've been wanting to workshop and make sure the statement of intent was fit for our district, for our people. And yet again, we haven't had a chance to do that. And I do feel that, Councillor Vucic, we need to make sure that your work program is vigorous enough to make sure that it is not an oversight ever again. And it's also something that sits with the general manager and CEO. This is one of our most important CCOs, one of the biggest risks for us, one of the biggest relationship causing, one of the biggest raru causing relationships that we have, and it makes Whānau Holdings look worse than they actually are. I'm sorry to the members in the gallery that disagree with me, but I see some good in what Whānau Holdings delivers. But when we, as an organisation, can't even uphold our process, it just puts another. Sorry, I'll just calm down. It just puts more, flames to the fire. And whilst I missed most of what you said about having a workshop, I know it's too late. And I'm really what next, Whānau District Council? Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Too late for the June deadline, but remember, this is done every year. So thank you for that. And look, we did ask for that workshop, and I've been told I'm going to ask now the CE to respond to that. We were told that this is going to happen. And do you want to respond to that? Or?
If you'll allow me, Chair, apologies to members that we didn't have the session earlier. Members, I'm sure will appreciate it's been a number of extenuating circumstances over the last few months, and staff, in particular the CFO, have been, to say the least, busy on a number of other issues during an LTP year. We will hold the session for the workshop scheduled for July this year and ensure it's done in good time, and the reports will be seen for next year's statement of intent.
Thank you.
Just add to that, and on top of that, from my own culpability in this, we lost a GM and lost a GM for 3 or 4 months, and no one's been in their natural seat while we managed that issue. I guess it's clear that there was always going to be a risk that something in the finesse was going to get lost while we had people out of portfolio. Certainly Will wasn't sitting in this portfolio where he would have picked this up had he been in the seat. In fact, we had 3 tier 3s do step up training in the role when they're away. So hard to imagine how we would have avoided that, but there's real cause that comes from us in terms of this emissions. So for notion.
Thank you. Did you have your hand up? No. Councillor Smith, who's next?
Who wants to go next? I'll go next. Just signalling, as much as I would like to operate on a no surprises approach, I will be giving a nudge to pass some amendments today. Whether or not I will get support for them, I will test it with the democratic process. So apologies for no signalling, but due to the committee workload that we have and the need to for community engagement in this process, there wasn't the time available between receiving the agenda and now. So the first question that I've got is just inapplicable to page 29, performance outlook. It states in their final holdings have it as an agreed set of performance measures and targets which form the basis for accountability to delivering on Council's strategic direction, priorities and targets. It also notes in there that these include measures agreed as part of the 2018 to 28 long-term plan. So please excuse my question, but my question is whether or not we have the ability at this point to amend those performance targets acknowledging the word agreed in that. So I'd like clarification on that before I continue, Mr. Chair.
I understand, but I'm going to ask who's going to answer that.
I'll lead off and Janice will correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no opportunity to make any amendments to this at this stage.
Changes like it's referencing the 28, it should reference 2131, but it would only be those type of typo changes that we would pick up, not functional. No.
Yeah, so corrections, you're saying corrections?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Sorry, for clarification, is that applicable to the entire statement of intent or just to those performance targets?
All of the statement of intent, Chair.
Yeah, if there's any corrections or errors that have been noted, misspellings or the like.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think given that this is not an information report, this is a decision-making report, it would have been good to have that clarified to members prior to today, that there was no opportunity for amendments. So in that case, I will exercise good governance and not put my amendments up, but I will be speaking against this report today. Unfortunately, as much as it pains me, we did make it very clear in the process last year that we had expectations around working with the board, and I understand that you've outlined that. So I just wanted to express my disappointment there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Smith. And I might add that I did as well disappointment not having the workshop for this very reason that we experienced today. I might add, I agree with Councillor Stratford that the final holdings has had some amazing successes where they have met all of those clients and issues in various ways, but there's also issues that have occurred as well. I'm not detracting from those. Any other elected members in this debate wishes to comment?
Apologies, Mr. Chair, in my frustration, I did lose sight. There is an amendment that I would like to put up to this resolution that is in relation to the statement of intent that final District Council directs the CEO of the requested workshop with elected members and the Board of Final Holdings by 31st of July 2021. It is put in this report that that workshop will be held in July, and I'd like to put a date upon this. Thank you, Councillor Stratford.
Thank you. That does put the CEO on a bit of a spot on the workload we've got. Is that reasonable?
Sorry, Councillor Smith, with the members and board, final board.
By 31st of July 2021.
So,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Big card. Yep.
I just want to know, is that practical? Can we achieve that in that time frame? I hear what the ladies are saying, and I certainly agree that we need a workshop. I just want to make sure that we don't now cut off our nose to spite our face, because given that we want to ensure that there is adequate communication with our community, I just don't want to cut us short, that's all, and whether that date is too short a time frame. And I just wonder if you could ask the Chief Executive or Will to make comment, or Janice, whoever's appropriate, to make comment on what's an appropriate time frame, please.
Thank you, Mayor Carter. I did get nods around the table, but I'll get whoever will you can answer.
Obviously, more time is better than less time, but we're able to do this in July, so we can give members that assurance.
That answers your question,
Thank you.
Ben? Any other? So that's on the table at the moment. So now let's go to this amendment, and I'll just take any comments from the members on that amendment. No comments on the amendment?
I have a question. Just was that for council and
the Board of Final Holdings?
Yep.
No, council only.
Yeah, I think
that's what I asked.
Yeah.
Council only.
I think input, the input can come from anywhere, but it's really for council only. Otherwise, it could think it'd be better that way. I'm getting advice.
That's correct. It's our CCO, correct.
Yes.
I just clarifying, I wasn't asking for anyone else, I was just clarifying if it was council.
Sorry, just to clarify, take out final clothing forward? No. So
yeah,
can we have the resolution?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
let's have a
check
resolution.
As it stands, it includes the Board of Final Clothing.
Yeah.
Any other comments while that's happening from?
Can I make a comment, John? And it's speaking to the resolution, and I agree that actually we're all agreeing strongly that there was a desire for a workshop. And I think we're also perhaps somewhat publicly acknowledging that as a shareholder we haven't quite done what we should do. It's our responsibility to manage the relationship, and I think we're acknowledging that we have mismanaged, at least in the sense of actually doing things in a timely fashion. I guess I'd like to ask a question: what do we achieve with the workshop? I think the important thing about a statement of intent is that it gives direction to the board, or rather the board has come to us with a statement of intent. We have an obligation, as you say, John, to have it adopted by 30 June. We need to give them, they need certainty from us their approach to the year is right. What are we signalling by the July workshop? That we're uncertain that we have given them that certainty?
So I'm one of the time I'll get Will to give an answer to that, and then maybe I'll add to it, and then we'll go back to this motion.
Thank you very much. Picking up the Deputy Chair's last point about mea culpa. Clearly, we would have much rather have delivered this workshop when we should have done it, but we haven't done. And to use the old expression, we are where we are.
That's right.
We need to make a decision on this today, and it needs to go through unamended. However, what I'm picking up, Bruce, is a very real sensation from members to ensure that we don't land next year in the same position as we're in this year. And I think the point that's made very eloquently by Councillor Smith is that one way of doing that is to have an early workshop to ensure that we're not in the same position next year and that we don't have to use that word drift. So I think I'm assuming that's what's behind Councillor Smith's amendments. And there's no issue for the Chief Executive or myself to organise that workshop.
Can we grab the wording from the report itself? Says it is intended, I think that Councillor Smith is trying to get a DNP in there. It is intended to have a further workshop in July to discuss the statement of intent and any additions that Council may require for the coming year, as the wording direct from our report, which would be what we'd want to do at that workshop. If we wanted to pull that wording to add it in there, I don't know.
Well, we won't for the coming year, it'll be for the subsequent years, but I think it's broader than that. So I'm a little bit reluctant to be very specific, and why I think it's broader than that is there is actually, there's concern in the community, and some of the concern from fellow councillors about, how does the CTO operate, what its main function is, and various things like that. So there is a bit of, I believe, a bit of learning and understanding required. So I don't want to cut it down to just on the statement of intent, but clearly the thoughts and feedback that will come out of that will potentially go into the future comments on the statement of intent in the future years. Is that a comment, Mr. Will?
I think the Chief Executive wanted to come in, Chair.
What is insurance? Sorry. Through you, the chair. So, and a bit out.
Yes.
Yes.
Delete that, Casey. I think we're fine.
Assurances Compliance Committee directs Chief Executive Officer to hold the workshops with elected members before 31st of July 2021.
Through you, Chair. The Chief Executive wanted to make a comment.
It was just a brief addition to what Will had said in response to the other reason that it's important to stick with the July plan is just out of respect for the public, because obviously it's a public issue, and the most respectful thing we can do is arc this up early and get talking early and get to the bottom of some changes that can be some early conversations.
Does that reflect your...
I'm happy with that as a starting point. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think that starting that in July, as Mr. Taylor has articulated, will open the conversation as to where that goes from there.
So I'm going to put that amendment, which is probably not an amendment strictly, but I'll put that in there as an amendment. Put it to the vote. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that was 4.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Right. So carried. So we go now to the substantive motion. And any other comments? Then I'll put that to the vote. So all in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So that's
Sorry, I was against.
Okay. So there's one against. Yeah. And do you want that recorded, Councillor Stratford?
Aye.
Right, yep, so record that, please. So we're going to now go to item 6.1, Council Financial Report for the period ending at page 33. So, do I move it? Do I have a second?
Happy to second. Bruce moved. Bruce moved.
Bruce moved. Who was the second?
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith, thank you. So comments around the table. This is the Council Financial Report. Any comments?
Sorry, can I ask some questions?
Yes, certainly. Comments, questions?
Sorry, if you might be speaking to us. Sorry, Janice. So thank you, by the way, for the report. And I must confess, I think I tried to look for the old one that's been updated, but Casey's saved me from one of the questions I might have asked, so that's good. I wanted to just ask probably 2 questions at a higher level than the specifics of what's in the report. The first one is, I'm very interested, well, they're both actually relate to the capital group. The first one is I am most interested in particularly the substantial additional government funding we have received. If I've read the papers correctly, shortly about to tell me how many millions of dollars we have got that's given rise to new projects. And I was wanting to ask what assurance we have around delivery on those specific government-funded projects. The reason I ask is simply because I retain a level of concern about risk associated with having the Crown as a funding partner, not because they're unreliable, but they are important to us as a stakeholder. So I'm just wanting to have a sense, Janice, of the assurance we can have around the control of delivery on those government-funded projects.
It goes through Will, Chair. I'd like to start with the okay.
Yeah, thanks, Will.
We have a monthly. That's a good question, really good question, because it's all extra to the normal routine, and so it needs a bit of extra care. That's where you probably speed up the ball, isn't it? Yes. We have a monthly program steering group for 23 projects, which are, with 2 exceptions, all co-funded between council and the Crown Infrastructure Fund or the provincial PDM. We have David Clayton come to assist Andy Finch in talks with 4 elected members to go through one by one. And one of the main things that we focus on is the funding agreements that have been signed with MB and what the deliverables are against those. It's a hypersensitivity for us to the point that we had a very busy early phase securing those funding agreements and the ability to meet them. And now they're all on the rails. This is just close watch to a monthly routine. In terms of reporting, I'll turn that to you.
Janice, would you assist us with this one?
Sure. Through you, Chair, we have obviously been looking at our LTP audit at the same time as we've been doing this, and that is one of the questions they've asked, because quite a few of these projects have leapt across into the first year of the LTP as well. So yesterday we had to supply information to them about those that were under contract and those that weren't, for exactly the same reasons as yourself. And the majority of the big projects are already under contract. So the three big ones for us are the roading ones around Napapito Road and Perrier Road and Ruapepa Road. They are all in construction phase and underway now. So that counts for 12 million, I think, in total, and they will be completed this year. Is it 20 million? I'm only looking at next year's numbers. We also have the Tahika Revitalization Project, which is not one project in totality. It's a number of small projects going to a wide range of contractors, and that's all underway as well. We do have some, they asked, one of the questions they asked was, where does the project risk sit? And it isn't always us. We do have some that is co-shared with Barnwell Holdings and with Sportsville, so it isn't all resting on council shoulders. So at this point, I'm very comfortable that we will achieve the outcomes that we set out to. We are already receiving money from MB for the projects as they go and with the milestones that we achieve. So.
Right, actually, that was a subsidiary question which I was thinking of asking, was actually that the funding agreements we have in place mean that actually we do have a regular flow of funding relative to milestones rather than, as I've seen elsewhere, we've basically had to put up all the money before we can pay.
No, these are all milestone driven, and my cash flow monitoring and banking officers across to make sure that we get them in the right time frames.
I'm glad to hear that, Janice. Hey, look, the other question that I had again was around the CapEx was what seemed to, congratulations, Andy, a remarkable number of spend to date versus our budget, and I think we're only out by less than $500,000, which would have to be phenomenal. Can I say that? And I mean that seriously. What I was interested in understanding was potentially the qualitative nature of the makeup of that, of what we have achieved. Does that budget that we have got here in the comparison compare us against our original budget and presumably built up from our asset management plans, and or does it also take into account the additional money we received during the year through PGF and MB, etc.?
Through you, Chair, if you refer to page 60, we've actually broken it down to BAU, DIA and EZO projects.
So what page, Janice?
60.
60?
60.
Already, my reading wasn't great enough, but I'm very glad you can tell me, Janice.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. You did say you can't look at it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, it's fine, thank you.
Next members, any other questions on this report?
Just a statement of appreciation for the way that it's being delivered, especially in terms of the project side of things and understanding where the additional spend is occurring and allowing us to have a really good oversight of that. It's really appreciated, so thank you.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I'm just trying to find what page I was on. It was in relation to the annual forecast versus the projected spend, and it was, here it is. So on page 38, the capital expenditure is going to be 13% up for this financial year. Is that going to have a impact on rates with regards to the depreciation amount going forward?
Yes. Yes. It will have been factored into the long-term plan already.
Yeah, that's what I thought. A lot of what is currently in the LTP is not where the hurt is coming, it's from the delivery of projects in the previous year.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you. Any other councillor report?
I'd just like to reiterate the statement that I made this morning at the Infrastructure Committee meeting in regard to the performance of the NGA. They have really, I'm going to use the same phrase again, knocked one out of the park this year and over-delivered And I think it's important to recognise where we see exemplary practice for the benefit of the residents of the farm, and record that in the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Will?
If I can just make a very quick comment, Chair, and that's to echo those sentiments. The report prepared by Janice is, as always, very well presented, and that additional breakdown that you've done, Jan, has been helpful to members, as Bruce has appreciated there. But we're speaking on figures which are very, very good. This is a real good news story for the Far North, and I know that Sean's played a big role in this, but so has Andy and the entire team. So good news all round.
Yep, excellent. Any other comments online? No? And then I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So we move to item 6.2. I have a move and a seconder that the Insurance Risk and Finance Committee received a report revenue recovery report 31 March 2021. We have a mover. And seconder?
Peter second.
Councillor Smith. Comments? Questions?
I'll just make a very brief comment, Chair, if I could, in introduction, if I might, and that was just to say that this work has been done through the lens of a post-COVID world, where Janice and the team have sought to implement revenue recovery with a measure of leniency, acknowledging that some families are having it hard, and that we've sought to deal with things in a lenient and humane manner, Chair.
Councillor Tiffany, did you?
Just wanted to, on page 66, the Māori freehold land rates and water analysis. So can we expect, will our next report will be the final one where we see these figures here before they can be written off under the new Rating of Whenua Māori Amendment Act? Or?
So you, Chair, you will see the 30 June position should drop. We will do the write-off for the 1st of July, so it would be done immediately before the end of this financial year, so that we roll into non-rateable status with a clear account on the 1st of July.
And are you able to comment? I know that we had highlighted, I think it was a potential 19.5 which meet the Act and can be written off immediately, and there were further discussions on the rest, but is that still the same figure that we're looking at as coming off the books?
No, through you, Chair, the amount that's coming off the books for the unused and occupied land is around 12 million, and there's a further 5 million that's in discussion with the CEs of here and NRC at the moment.
And I can add to that, but just Councillor Tiffany, you got any more questions? Yeah, just adding to that, I did ask Janice what that actually meant in terms of the GST. So I understand that we'll actually get a refund on all the GST that's been paid, which is quite good. Yeah. Any other comments? Councillor Smith, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge on the first page the empathy that the team are showing in response to COVID-19 and applying leniency, calling off owners to offer payment plans to avoid council issuing mortgage demand in July 2021 in recognition of the pain, I guess, that everybody is feeling post-COVID-19. The only question I have is what that payment plan process looks like, how a payment plan is arrived at, and are we gearing these people up for success, or are those payment plans quite stretching on their finances?
Through you, Chair, we normally would apply a 2 to 3 year period so that we spread the arrears over a maximum of 36 months, and we take into account the future year's rates when we're doing that. So It depends on what the customer wants to engage with council on. In some cases, they have just wanted to be able to pay monthly as opposed to quarterly, which is fine, but we just need to put that into our system so we know what to expect. In others, we have just spread a small amount over the rest of the year, so it's really down to what the customer's needs are that drives those conversations. In exceptional circumstances, we will go beyond 3 years, but it's got to be exceptional circumstances for that to take effect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Janice. Any other questions, Councillor Smith?
No, thank you.
No other questions? I'll put it to the vote then. All in favour?
No.
Against? Carried. So now, item 6.3, that the Assurance Risk and Finance Committee received a report of June risk management. I'll move a second for that. I'll move it then. Do you have a second? I'll second it. Bruce, a second. Do you want to comment on what you see in front of you?
Well, I want to comment. Sorry. Yep. You asked me. Yes. Well, I thought Tanya might want to say something. I think that I'm quite comfortable with the general nature of the report, and I appreciate the progress and the highlights, and I wanted to essentially tick those off. I would like to, at the pointy end of comments, we still have to make a decision over what is the residual risk around water resilience from our workshop. But if I can also provide a solution, I think it's probably green at the moment. Yeah. So because I'm hearing that we have been cognizant, we've got some structural matters that we are putting into play that will lower the risk, as well as also the water plans, blah blah blah. I won't go over what we had in the workshop. So I would like to suggest that with some sense that we agree that we can actually now put a residual risk around water resilience, which we couldn't have before. So I'll put that out there. But I do have one question which Tanya may be able to help me over, which is the risk dashboard. And the more I looked at it, and probably at a wee bit of a too quick glance, I'm not quite certain I understand what I'm looking at, and I'm just wondering, for the sake of the meeting, if anybody else has got the same slight queries, whether in fact we can hear it out, and I'm going to take it offline. So
No, that's why I asked you first. Now, Tanya, you've got some questions to answer.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm happy to design the risk dashboard how you like. This is my first go at it. So I was trying to think of the questions that you would like answered when I put it together, without getting too complicated. And so I thought you may be interested in knowing the risk impact score of the risk sitting on the group risk register. So that's that first donut. And in there you can see that there are a number under district services that need to be scored still. So these risk registers will always be works in progress because they're not static. And then I felt you may be interested in knowing the quantum of the risk in terms of whether it's organisational, group, department, or again uncategorised, just so that we're completely upfront with where we are with our work. So that is the second donut there. And then what category are those risks sitting in is the graph on the right-hand side. I've also included here the total number of risks that have been identified so that you can understand the percentage, how that splits up. So in district services, there are 26 risks, and I identified where we have the 3 lines of defence established, which is around the governance, and we've spoken about that in previous risk meetings. So really happy to, because the dashboard this is my first cut, and happy to take guidance.
So, thank you, Tanya. So I'm going to ask other members to comment on that dashboard. As Tanya said, she's happy to change it. However, we believe we should be viewing it. Any comments and thoughts on what you're seeing?
Sorry. No, I'll just follow through. So I take it these dashboards are for who? For us or for the general managers?
They are for both.
Right.
So the IAMS governance meeting that we had recently, we pulled those up as well. So that gives them a bit of a summary of where they're at.
Great. So I guess perhaps what I'm looking for is some I guess assurance that that the reporting is effective for essentially the risk owner. We're giving them a view about actually the nature of the risks, the fact about whether we have, I'm going to say whether they control or not control, that's probably just a wee bit too loose, but you've got even there ones to yet be scored.
Yes.
So this is giving us a window on how well IM or the district services are over the top of risk management within their area.
Yes.
Okay. Is it useful, Andy, Dean, Darren, anybody that's over there that is a receiver of one of these scores? With fairness to tell you, that's really what I'm keen to know, that this is giving me an insight to their risks, but also that they are able to manage risks.
To you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, absolutely. At a group level, we work, and Tanya has been very helpful to us in facilitating the discussion. Every agenda at a group level, and this is clearly our leadership management approach, is to assess risk, to spend time periodically on scoring those risks and updating ourselves on what might be not only a group risk, but also something that may emerge as an organisation-wide risk, in which case I think you will, as a governance body, see this escalated to a status where it is an organisational risk rather than a group-specific risk. So exactly that assurance to yourselves as the committee that we are focused on risk and that we will escalate any risks that we believe you as a governance body need to be aware of as appropriate.
Thank you.
Chair, I'd like to add to that and just give an example that we recently had a risk workshop around Darwin, and there were 3 risks identified as part of that. And I think as part of the schooling for one of those risks moved into red in the top 12, list of 12 here, so that then gives focus to the team and the organisation that we need to do something about. So really, really useful for me as a tool to escalate issues that may need a broader and corporate view to tackle.
Yeah, that's great news. Thank you, Tanya. I was thinking for being up front and saying that. I think one of the things, John, that we've got to be comfortable of is that the risk process, which I'm not going to dabble on what those risks are, but to understand that there is that regular monitoring is part of that, Tanya, makes sense.
But thanks. Excellent question. Thanks, Andy. I appreciate that response. Kelly, did you have something to say? I'm just trying to look at messages that are coming through here. She's about to leave.
She's got to board her plane.
She has to go. So is that what she's saying?
No comment.
Yeah, Councillor Smith?
Bruce has covered it off, thank you.
Yeah.
Or
so,
more to the point, Andy and Dean covered it off.
Of course.
Yes, then you might be able to say what just now, I want to make a comment. As you're aware that we're looking at a risk workshop or training, which I'm looking forward to. In 2018, when we made some significant improvements in the risk area, and I'm just thinking, looking at on page 20 or 69, you've got this little picture in front of you and all the risks that have been listed there with the highest. I'm actually wondering how accurate are we reflecting our risk? Are we seeing anything else? How many surprises that we've actually had? I've heard Councillor Court mention a few potential risks, maybe not today, but early on today. And these surprises, I'm thinking, well, is there something we can do better? So I'm looking forward to this training for all elected members and senior staff so that it'll be effective. And so, for example, if I ask 3 questions and then, Will, you can have your comments you want to make. So if we were to look back to 2018, the last 2 years, which of these areas have we got surprises in terms of unbudgeted expenses that came along that we didn't know about? That's one thought. And so these are rhetorical questions, I might add. In which areas, I'm trying to read my handwriting, and in which areas have we found that we have our strategies, which areas have we've hindered achieving our strategies? My writing is terrible, I've got to sort that out. So in what areas have we So in what areas in the last 2 years have our strategies been hindered? Therefore we got there. And which trends are likely to threaten Council's future or the future in terms of the Council achieving its objectives and services? So I'm throwing those out as a rhetorical question.
They are very rhetorical, I think you know.
Yeah, they are very rhetorical, and I don't want an answer today, but we'll make a comment on it. And in terms of the training, because that is truth testing what we've done, say, in the last 2 years, and that, again, allows us to better refine our ability to identify risk, especially emerging risk, thinking ahead.
Through you, Chair, I think those are good questions, and I know this goes that Jamie and Tanya will reflect on, particularly in drafting the next report to the Art Committee. I wanted to make two comments, if I could, please. The first is I'm not surprised, but I'm delighted by the response from my fellow GMs, and the reason for that is that in working in this space, you need to have both science and social science at work. You need to have hard and soft skills, and Tanya has that. One of the reasons she's been recruited, she is an empiricist. She lives with numbers and creating percentages, but she also has the soft skills to make those land via workshops with frontline staff. So that's a big plus. It turns theory into action, which we're trying to do. We're after impact rather than just concepts which sit, or policies which sit on a shelf. The second point is I would direct members' attention to page 71, and when Tanya produced this draft report, was Jamie signed off, and I looked at it. I added another paragraph, and this report was signed off in the wake of two big events, seismic events, international events in 1 week. The first was at Waikato DHB with the hacking of the systems, and the second was in a very similar but to a much larger extent in the Republic of Ireland, where the entire health service ground down for a full 7 days, and that there was ransomware was installed, and it was the biggest threat, the biggest cyber threat to the Irish state, the Taoiseach of the PM of Ireland had said. So with that, what I'd like to do would be to bring a standing item to this committee on technology generally, but particularly with cybercrime, to log any issues which we've come up, which have been flagged up with us over the last cycle, and to report on best practice. We really need to be on the front foot, Chair. You had written, you were kind enough to raise this issue with me, and you asked me, can we be sure that we're safe? And the honest answer is no. No organisation can ever say they can be safe, but what we need to do is to have our guard up as best that we can. And one way that I can try and demonstrate that, one way that keeps me on point, is having to report to you every cycle about what we're doing in this space.
Any comments?
Can I just ask for your indulgence to provide some clarity around how you see this conversation moving forward? I'm mindful that we have some identified risks here in the agenda, but you talked, and it was almost like you were playing to an audience of one, because it was really resonating with me. Unbudgeted expenditure, we've got a rush coming. Surprises, well, we just talked about a lot this morning. Alignment with our strategy, we talked about that a lot this morning. So I'm just wondering, what is the mechanism that you're anticipating that we start to get these recorded in this risk register, because that pathway forward is not clear to me.
Yeah, and thank you, Councillor Court. You've highlighted my thinking, and obviously you're thinking the same way. I actually don't want those answered at the moment, but it's part of the risk register, and that's where I think we've got room to improve, and I'd rather actually do that in a more detailed workshop and or potentially around the training, so that the learnings we've had of what we've discovered in the last 2 years we can then apply to how we actually manage our risk. So that was really just signalling, to this committee that we need to move in more detail. Sorry.
I like this conversation too, and it might be just the lens I'm looking through, or maybe I'm just missing something, but I think the answer is yes to all of those. The only thing I'd want to look at in a bit more detail is what's in the criteria for qualifying a risk, but they're here for those 3 reasons. All of them are here for all of those 3 reasons. That's why they're organisational risks. Just to go back to the point made earlier, that each of the groups has got the tip of the iceberg. Here we've got, I don't know what the last count is, Tanya, but maybe 60 or 80 organisational risks sitting within groups. The top 12 generally come to the board, and any others that we need to bring to your attention. But they are here because they are a risk that may manifest. That's just surprise. They're costing us money. We go through every one of these now and tell you how we've spent money on mitigating these, and they're all a risk to our strategy. That's why they're on the table. So really seminal questions, but I think it's a closed loop. It's why we put them here.
I'll be surprised if all our risks didn't actually have impact on those things, because that's what really potentially defines a risk. Yeah. But I just wanted to look back and say, well, what have we missed anything? Why have we looked at it? I'm going to ask Jamie to make a comment.
I'm through the chair, so I'll kick off, that's okay. But so you may have picked up that Tanya has endeavoured to build the risk register as a dynamic feature in your governance. And so that's been a lot of steps we've put in the last 6 to 9 months. So first off is that we're now reporting actively on, and that's where you get the heads up of things that could come onto the risk register. You're in the top 12 risk register sometime in the future. The second thing is that we've taken reports to you directly to ask you your agreement to take things off the risk register, because we believe that the treatment plans are in place and are delivering, and that we're tracking towards that inherent risk score that you've set us. The workshop that we want to do with you next is to talk about what's the next steps that we can do to make this dashboard a dynamic tool to give you the confidence at every committee meeting that you are on top of the main risks that this organisation is facing. So.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I actually wasn't making negative comment towards this dashboard, but I was thinking about now we've been running for 2 years since we've improved things. Let's look back on what we can actually do and go to the next step. And I'll just ask Councillor Cook to respond, and then Tanya, you can respond.
I'm wondering if my message got lost in translation. So we have some new and emerging risks that are coming through rapidly, and they're not in here. And there doesn't seem to be a mechanism to capture them, and I'm not quite sure what that mechanism looks like, and I don't think it's a workshop. So, and the most immediate example is roads. We're going to be underfunded to deliver our roads, and due to some sheer majesty, that's the word there is that, of Janet's, we've just avoided a tag order.
Magically.
Mastery. So there was a real risk there. Right up until this morning, there was a risk, and it hasn't been mitigated, and moving forward, it's a significant risk. It's not captured. And I don't want to talk about roading per se. I give that to you as an example of there needs to be a mechanism here where this organisation can be more responsive to what's on this page.
Thank you, Councillor Court. That was my thinking, and just how can we apply it? Tony, do you want to comment? So looking at the audit risk function, are there changes to our process, whether it be a bit more agile, continue to find potential risks, or whatever? So I'm happy to, now.
Through the chair, I'd like to actually showcase 2 exemplars here, which is the district services and IM. where we've established the 3 lines of defence for risk and are identifying emergent risk coming through those groups. So we are working, Councillor Court, to get to that point where we can articulate to you, and as Andy Finch said, we've got one coming up for Project Darwin that we just workshop this week, and specifically within IAM we're actually going to have a workshop with NTA as well coming up, and just looking at the risk and how it hits IAM. But we also, within our risk registers, we can do some analysis which talks to you about whether it's going to be a risk that affects our strategy or whether it's a risk that's going to affect our budget. And so the risk register has been designed so that we can do some reasonably high-level analysis, and we can come in, we can tell you that within IAM that there's a number of risks that are identified as strategic and could affect us organisationally, and if they're a large enough quantum, we can bring them through onto the organisational risk register that we're looking at.
Yep. Any other comments? No. I'll put it to the vote then. All in favour? Aye. Again? Now move item 6.4, people and capability. So do I move a second for that the Assurance Risk and Finance Committee receive the report People and Capability quarterly update from 1 January to 31st of March. Thank you. Yes. And I'll second it. Comments on this one?
I have a comment, yes, Chair. So according to this, since January, we've had 19 new staff start. I'm looking at the head count. Went from 380 to 399. So I know that yesterday we talked about, cultural competency for our staff in the induction program. I'm seeing here that we've actually had 19 new staff start, which is actually quite huge. I know the FTE isn't 19, but 19 new people have started in our organisation. So I just wanted to make parallels across there because that's quite a big cohort just in this year. I also noticed that we've had 7 leavers, 3 that are new jobs, 1 retired, 2 exited, but that only equals 6. So the report didn't actually capture. I was wondering what the other person, what happened to them? Is it captured in this report?
Yep, thank you. Very good question there.
Can I just clarify a point that Councillor Tippin, I hadn't picked up on that, Councillor. But if 7 left and we've now got 399, does that not make our newbies 26?
Yeah.
Good question. So, Jill?
Yes, so through you, Chair, I didn't get your third one, Moko, but yes, we have had that many people, so we have part-timers and also fixed-termers come in, particularly in district services in the contact centre. What was your third point? I didn't hear it, sorry.
Oh, the report captures, gives a breakdown of those leavers, but it still leaves a remainder of 1 that doesn't really have a...
So it's a fixed term.
Why or how? Oh, okay.
So we don't generally report on fixed term leavers. So the 6 are the reasons for the exit.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jill, for bringing us this report. It's great to see it on the agenda. My question was just whether or not going forward, acknowledging that this is the first time we've received this report, whether going forward we'll see trends within the report as well, quarterly on quarterly. I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely. So this is the first one, and then we'll be able to start building a picture every quarter. Yeah, and hopefully have some more pizzazzy reporting because we've got a data and systems person joining the team.
We like it simple sometimes, children.
So if I can ask our members, because I didn't make a note that are these indicators sufficient that we want to look at when we're looking at staff and capabilities?
I think they're a great start. I mean, it's something.
I
think it's a great start.
Great start.
And I think the missings will become obvious in the future. I mean, if we're struggling to find some missing at this point, then I would say it's probably enough. And I think I've always said, you get a few measures, and over time you start asking questions about those measures. Those other measures can satisfy. But I would like to know what a managed exit is.
Well, we know what the management. You can't ask that in a public meeting.
That answers the question.
Okay, so of the 7 leaders, were 2 of those managed exits?
Through you, Chair, 2 of the 6. The 7th is the fixed termer.
Oh yeah, that's okay. 2 of the 6. Okay. And so your surveys, it says here. I know it says no health and safety well concerns. That's okay. Thank you. I'm just wondering what the managed exits in the surveys were. I don't need to know.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, John. Thank you, Jill, for this. A wee bit of other additional information. I probably need to reflect what do I see as the purpose of this report, and I take the point around turnover and particularly health and safety and some of the reasons. I would be interested, and I think it's probably relevant in the current one that the council is in and indeed the sector's in, is actually what this is only on a quarter, but actually what's our role in the average turnover of staff in any one year. I think Jill, I don't know whether you have a strong view as to what that number should be, but it's certainly around about probably somewhere between 12 and 15% across the sector, at least annually. It would be interesting to know how we stand relative to that. I think the other thing that interests me particularly is actually are there recruitment and or retention issues in the organisation. So this is the current sectoral issues, and this goes back to your idea about emerging risks. You know, recruitment operators or consenters or whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of those sorts of things that there are particular pressure points on. And my view would be, so the report is not sufficient. You have asked the question, what would be useful for us to have from a risk management perspective? And I think those might be 2 aspects that would be useful to have something. Jill, I don't know whether it's high level. I hope it will be high level because I don't want detail, but high level in most areas.
Thanks, Chris. And that's what I meant by other indicators. Yeah, and in other council meetings, I think we did potentially into other indicators as well. That's why I want the users to think. Has that been captured? And Jill, you've got the thing been captured. Thank you. Any other comments?
A very brief comment, Chair. If I could, just responding to that last point. There are some significant recruitment and retention issues, and when I was privileged to be working in Darren's seat over in SPP, we came across that, and I'd like to thank Jill and the colleagues in P&C because they responded very quickly to assist us to try and make it easier to recruit and retain highly priced staff. What we do know is that the development market has gone into overdrive, and it puts huge pressure on councils up and down the country, and Far North is not immune from this. I think this is the point that Bruce is making, but P&C have been good in being flexible and enabling us to better keep the staff that we've got and to recruit fresh staff in where required.
Thank you.
So how many empty positions are there right now?
Sorry, I can't hear. I should probably correct.
Oh, sorry.
25.
25. Okay, so we're expecting a full-time complement of being 380 staff.
366 FTEs.
That's what you've got. That's what you got now. That's what you got now. Plus,
that's what our actual funding target is. We work out the salary budget based on sector.
Okay, so the 366 we've got here, plus the 25 vacancies, doesn't make 366.
Oh, sorry, 383 is the number. Yeah, it used to be 366.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Tough voice in the background.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And of course, we have with each of our rewarded reform and everything else, that's going to have a little package as well. And another risk.
Jill, I just, when you answer the attrition question, because it was a good question, I think the attrition between 6 and 10% is normal. We would start to get worried above 10%, and we may get there at different places because of the points you raised. There are home order and the new waters plan. They're going to be big organisations looking for a lot of extra capacity, so we've got to compete in the market. We wouldn't like any less than 6% attrition. That may sound strange, but you would expect that if you've got a dynamic workforce that's keeping a certain youth profile, that you'd want a certain number of people to be coming in, and therefore you need a certain number of people to be there. So between 6 and 8%, and you better work out from these numbers that we've got less than 7 at the moment on the last quarter anyway.
From my perspective, I'd say, look, if you can keep a person an average of 7 to 10 years, you'd be okay, which is between 10 and 14%, which would be absolutely okay by me.
Well, I think, not that's anecdotal, what I would have said 10 to 14 would have been the number I've been seeing with the number of councils probably hitting over 20, which is certainly percent of the 10, perhaps 15% from seen as probably average. Dare I say. Okay, that's fine. That's good retention.
Thank you.
So it's below 10.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks for that. Good discussion. So I put it to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So item 6.5. Move the second, please, for the Assurance, Risk and Finance Committee received a report of Audit New Zealand Management Report for June. So whoever it was.
I'll move that.
Yeah, I remember Bruce, seconder.
Yeah.
Councillor Smith. Interesting report. Yeah. So I'd be surprised if we didn't have some questions here. Who wants to go first?
I do. Well, I can. Just I sense really good ownership of your recommendations that come this way, and I was intrigued to know that these orders necessary. I'm wondering, did you see them as being that serious? Are they this necessary?
Through the chair, no.
I figured that.
No.
Can I ask why? I'm not sorry, and by the way, I'm not questioning the ability of you making that assessment. My reason is that actually we do take seriously what our auditor says to us. For whatever reasons, the auditor is saying that they are necessarily suggests, what is it? It's got to be dealt, that they recommend needs to be dealt with really fast. You're indicating that actually, so take a chill pill, Mr. Auditor.
Basically.
This is not such a big issue, which is fine, but it's not to know the rationale.
Yep. If we take them from the bottom, the bank dispense accounts, we have eyes on those all the time. We have a process that we go through. We've explained that to the auditors. They still felt that this was a necessary adjustment. We've explained why we can't change these things on a monthly basis, and we have to wait for penalty reports and things to pop up so that we can try and track people down. So I don't feel that one is one that warranted the level of scrutiny that it's got. Non-compliance with the Local Government Rating Act, to put that into context, there was a 10-cent error between what was in the funding impact statement and what was rated for. We have had multiple eyes on the documents between the LTP and funding impact statement, including Simpson Grayson this time round. I felt that was extreme for a 10-cent error. The performance reporting control environment, I do actually agree with. It is a DIA required KPI issue, and it is one that I'm working with Glenn and Andy and Bentia on to try and make sure that we get around that one. So that one I do feel is valid. Network administrator user accounts, we do have those across the IT team because there is a necessary need for them to have that level of access. We have eliminated all others, including my own, that were in that space to try and eliminate the risk. And again, that comes up time after time after time, but there is a real business need for those levels of access to exist. And the top one, the compliance with IPSAS 17, if you've read the report, you will see that I was quite detailed in my response, and I still don't believe that they are correct, and it is something I will be taking again this time around.
I'm comfortable with you straight on the auditor. Can I say, and I think perhaps I think it would be good to hear from David. It would be good to ask him why he sees things as necessary.
Yeah.
I've read the report and I take your point on board.
Yeah.
I certainly know that you're taking it seriously, which to me but it would be useful to know why he's already said this. And it would be good for him to be accountable to say, well, we told you it's not an issue, why do you still see it as an issue?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we've got a record now, and Celine's going to have to bring it back to us through our whatever reporting process on recommendations, etc. And it's just creating business. So I'm comfortable personally that you've got them under control. So thank you, and I appreciate you explaining why you might have a different view of this stuff.
Just through the chair, I think David or one of his team would have attended today if it wasn't for the LTP position that they're in. They are attending opinion review committees all day.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That was a very good question, actually, and it's answered some of my questions. I'm really pleased about that. Any other questions? Yep.
On page 108, now I've sort of brought this up before about Te Ahu Charitable Trust.
Yes.
It is not a CCO, it's a standalone.
Okay.
So I guess hopefully through that workshop in July we might be able to address this going forward, maybe, I don't know.
The workshop probably would help understanding CCOs and things, but Janice has got to answer that. But have you finished first?
Well, I mean, yes, I'll be interested to hear what Janice has to say, but we've been trying to, we still have to send our accounts to the Auditor General, and it costs a lot of money. We're running this facility for the community, and it's run under the Te Ahu Charitable Trust. It changed when we had council. So yes, I'd be interested to see how we can remove this.
Okay, through the chair, we can't. We have tried last year and the year before. The IPSAS rules that we have to work to have this rule around autopilot control, and it goes all the way back to the original settler of the trust deed and the connection to council. And we can't break that. It doesn't matter how much we separate the control of the board from council, we cannot, unless we actually legally disconnect the trust deed and re-establish a new one, we cannot break that original link. So from the terms of audit, Te Ahu Charitable Trust will remain tied to council and will remain one of the consolidating entities we have to put through our accounts. We are trying to talk to the Office of the Auditor General to find out whether we can arrange for a local auditor, but because of the tie to council, they try to keep them under one umbrella so that there is a common platform. We will continue and are continuing to have that dialogue, but we haven't reached a satisfactory point yet.
Thank you. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, I'll put the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Now I'll move that brings us to the end of the public session, and I'll move that we go into public exclusion for the reasons given. Do you want to have a second? Smith, all in favour? Yes.
I can't offer the
Are you gonna do closing
alternative,
comments
just a triangle
on the
on my
last
sheet
thing
here. I'm not
before?
going to say that you.
No, I made the comments.
There'll be a bit of a
as well.
Just acknowledge that.
So all in favour? Aye, that's the mayor. Against? Carried. So now we wait till we go into public, and if we can have a closing karakia, and I'm looking at Councillor Smith for that.
We are live, thank you.
So, thank you, and Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Chair. E noi tātou. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, hei huarahi mā tātou e te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou e tātou katoa. Hui e, tāiki.
Thank you.